Hi everyone, today I want to show you the third set of printables that I designed for our new edition of the Watercolor Workbook. If you don't know what I'm talking about, head on over to my online school and you can read more about this class. Watercolor Workbook was my first online class and it's a very beginner-friendly class, but it's also just if you want something that is very not intimidating, fun, gives you the opportunity to get to know your watercolors, play around, do something with your kids. It's a really great course and I've decided to refresh it and add some new videos and printables, so lots of free goodies. If you're only interested in the printables and not in the course, you can purchase these in my shop and then you just, have the printables and yeah, you can enjoy them. So today I'm going to show you the last, for now, I think, group of printables. The first one was focused on swatches and basically just like different ways to swatch your watercolors. And it's always fun to see what people do with these. And I just had the best time coloring in and kind of swatching my own watercolors. So these are just like some samples and I have more. Then the second set of printables is focused on mixing colors and seeing what you get when you mix different watercolors. So there are images of all of these in my shop, I think. But yeah, there's also a designated video to all of these. And the sketchbook that I am working in, which is a converted or altered Little Golden Book cover that I changed into a sketchbook. This is super, super easy to create this. So I have space for one more signature, and this signature is going to focus on color stories. And so I have made a printable that is kind of themed around that with the intention of creating your own color stories. Now, this is something I have been doing in my little Cuddy logbook, but before I had my stamps or these printables, it was just a bit messy, which I still love. So if you feel free to see this video purely as inspiration and, not necessarily as, you should buy this or you should enroll in the class. I would love to have you in the class and you're welcome to purchase these, but you can do these like very, very simply, just, play around with different color stories. And I just love the idea. This is using my stamps. If you have my stamps, you have a lot of flexibility in how to play around with this idea. So this is basically the idea of creating a curated color story or swatching out your palette or creating kind of themed palettes. I know a lot of you have, a palette for landscapes, a palette for florals, a seasonal palette. So all these things, I highly recommend documenting them and keeping a reference book in whichever format you find appealing. I just really like the printables and the whole setup of creating this kind of reference book. So these are sized, the printable are sized to fit a Little Golden Book. The size is 20 centimeters by 30 centimeters, and then when you fold them, every page is 15 centimeters by 20 centimeters. So those are the dimensions that the printables come in, with the intention of creating this. If you are, kind of handy on your computer, you can resize them, but the way that I designed them is to fit those measurements. So I just want to make that clear. So this time I created two options for the cover. One is kind of keeping more in line with the other covers for the previous two sketchbooks or sets of printables, sorry. So I really, really like this one and I will be coloring in mine and probably filming it so you can see that. This signature is themed color stories. But then I also created this one, which uses these vintage color charts that I altered the colors so that they fit more my aesthetic. But I think this would be really, really pretty. You know, it kind of does the work for us. And here we have to do a bit more work. So I have both of these options for you. And then the inside of the printables, or the signature, what you will have inside it, I created a few different formats and then different combinations. So feel free to kind of go with whatever you like. And there are endless possibilities. I had to kind of make some choices. So I just decided to go with kind of classic numbers, and I created Printable for a color palette of 6 colors, which is this one. And here it's identical on both sides, but the Printable will contain combinations of the different ones. So you can just print out whichever one you want as many times as you want, and you know, whatever kind of speaks to you more. So in this case, you would choose 6 colors. You have here space to write them down and maybe add a few. I always like adding some other materials to my color stories. So I, you know, would feel totally free also adding a few scribbles of my pastels, but that's, you know, just me. If you have my stamps, you can add here more stamped images. I just wanted to do this one with 6 colors. And here you have space to mix different colors. Here you have space to create a color wheel and a half. So in the booklet, or when you put it in your sketchbook, these would be folded. So I tried to fit as much as I could, but you know, I also, there's only so much you can fit. I want you to be able to see the colors, not just, you know, fit a bunch of them. So when this is in your sketchbook, this would be 1 page. So here you have room to create some color wheels. And then here, I just really like this. This is kind of like a quick glance of switching colors. And I have an idea of this here. So this is what I intended when I created this image, just to give you kind of a easy reference in a glance, how your colors mix and the how they look next to each other. So this is the 6 color palette. Then we have the 12 color palette. So again, obviously there are so many possibilities. I just had to make some choices. So those are the choices I made. Again, if you have my stamps, you can do whatever you want. You have more combination possibilities. And of course, you don't need the stamps or the printables. You can just like hand drawn. Again, use this video as inspiration and create whichever kind of pages you want. So here we have room for 12 colors. You will have to write very, very small, in a small handwriting or a small font, the colors. And here we have a big color wheel, which you can then, you know, grab a ruler and divide it to as many sections as you want. I didn't want to limit you in any way. So you can decide how you want to divide this, or you can just freehand it. Just make sure you use ink that is waterproof. And then again, here we have this image, which can give you just your color palette at a glance, or a few colors, how they look next to each other. So this is the 12 option. And then here we have a 24 colors option. And here you can swatch 24 colors, which is a number that a lot of, you know, palettes have and a lot of sets have. When you buy a set, 24 is a very common number. So you can do that here. And then here you can do some color wheels and see how, you know, play around with different triads, primary colors, play around with that. And then for 24, I actually created another option that just gives you a bit more mixing spaces. So again, 24 pans or swatches, one color wheel, and then a few areas to mix. And again, you can mix and match this with whatever you want, with the stamps, with the previous printables. Just have fun with it. The point of all of this is to play around with your watercolors and get to know them. And the specific point of this printable is to kind of start, especially if you're new with watercolors, to find your own color sense. There are several elements or concepts that create a signature style of an artist, and a color palette is one of them. And so this is a really kind of easy way to experiment with different color combinations, create different palettes, you know, make notes for yourself, what you can see yourself painting with this color palette, and just keep track of these things. And so you don't have to like reinvent the wheel every time you start a painting. You have a really great reference. So again, this is meant to be folded, and I'm using watercolor paper, so I can't put a ton of papers inside my sketchbook. But if you find, you know, thinner paper, you can probably use more papers. Or you can always create, these books are so easy to make, and they cost about $5 or €5 in Europe. So you can make one dedicated to swatches, one dedicated to mixes, and one dedicated to color stories, and just keep on growing your, you know, library that you created for yourself. This is such a great way of, you know, just like doing your thing and not relying on other people's preferences. Let's say it like this. So you can decide which cover you want. I'm a little bit biased because I just really like this image, but this is how you would put this. And then into our sketchbook it goes. And there we have it. Super, super easy. Again, I would probably not necessarily print a bunch of these, but rather go with what calls your name. You know, if you're in the mood to create a 12 color palette or a 24, or maybe you have just a palette that you bought and you want to see how it all looks together, start with that and then maybe print them out as you go, depending on what you feel like. So I hope you will enjoy these, and let me know if you have any questions. I am going to start filling some of these up, and I'll show you how it looks. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye-bye.